Today, guys, we're going to be looking at a body control module swap and some of the issues you'll run into if you try to use an used one. I'll also talk about what you can do to set it up if you have a new one, which is the preferred way. I'm using this same bench setup that I've used in a couple of videos now, and I'll link up in the upper part on how you can set it up. But I'm going to power this guy up with my bench power supply. And if we look at the instrument cluster here, and I basically simulate the ignition key with something like this, you can see that this guy's, and you can hear all the stepper motors going to town in here, and you can hear the radio, which is working just fine. I'm going to actually turn this off because too much background noise. But everything is working here. We can actually plug a Tech2 up into this kind of setup, as you can see in the other linked video, and interrogate and inspect this. Let's say you have a problem with your body control module and you need to replace it. Now, I'll link the part numbers for this particular vehicle setup, which is what you'd use on a Chevrolet Cavalier here. This is off a 2004 that I've put together. Very similar, in fact, if not identical, to a Pontiac Sunfire. But in general, these same years, like 2003, 4, 5, that kind of range, maybe 2002 and 6, everything I'm showing here should be very similar. So let me break for a moment and show you how to pull the body control module out of a salvage yard vehicle, and we'll come back and continue.
All right, guys, we're underneath the driver's side compartment of this 04 Cavalier, and this is the BCM right here. It just sits, you got your pedals right over out of view on this, over to the right here out of view, and it just sits right up in here. The first step to getting it off is we need to pop this little retainer for the harness. You can just use a flathead screwdriver, and it'll fit right behind the back there. Just pop that off. And then we're going to want to take these 3 connectors off. 1, 2, 3. And you just got these clips that retain them. You hold them down like that. Now it's really tough to show this in the video because I really need to get 2 hands back here. See if I can get one of them off maybe without. Probably not. So I'm probably not going to be able to show this because it's a 2-handed job. But you're going to remove these 3 connectors. When these 3 connectors are out, then what's holding it in the bracket, this black thing's the BCM. What's holding in the bracket is you got this little clip right here, and there's another one, kind of, I can tilt the camera up a little bit. There's another one over here. You're just going to pull these 2 tabs out of the way, and you're going to lift the BCM out and slide it out. And then reinstallation is the same way. When you get it back in, you'll just reattach the harness retainer after you've reconnected everything. All right, let's go back to the bench, and I'll show you how to reprogram it.
All right, so when you go to the salvage yard to get a replacement body control module, again, this is presuming you haven't gotten a brand new one. For this vehicle series, I want to point out there's a couple of different models here. So you're going to run across 2 different body control modules. This 227-12779 model and this 227-08-635. The main, obviously, difference is that this guy's got this wire. And this wire is for the remote unlock, like the key fobs that you would get. So if a vehicle's got power windows and remote keyless entry, it's going to be this type of body control module. And if it's just a base system, manual windows, not very well optioned, it's most likely going to have this base unit BCM. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to show you what's going to happen if we just swap out the BCM as is, right? So we've got an odometer reading of 136,102. And by the way, on these models, the cluster doesn't store anything like that. It's all stored in the body control module. It has an EEPROM on board to store the mileage. So you can swap the clusters out on these models in these years without having to worry about that sort of thing. And then the radio, that we showed was working before. I'll show you the same setup. It's still going on this particular, channel, 100.7, whatever it is. This is working too because the VIN number in the radio matches the VIN in the BCM, which then matches the VIN in the PCM over here. So that handshaking works out and everybody's happy, so nothing's locked up. So if I turn off the ignition key, which is what this switch is going to do, and this all powers down. And what I'm going to do is, since we obviously have one of these higher end BCMs with this 635 model, I'm going to swap it for this 635 model from the salvage yard. And just to tell them apart here, I'm going to put a big R on this guy. I'm going to put an O on this guy for the original. And I'm going to show you what's going to happen if we just come home from the salvage yard and we reach underneath our dash and we swap these guys out. So I might have to move this guy just a little bit out of my way here so that I can wiggle these connectors off. This is really difficult to get loose when you're trying to get it from under the dash area. But here on the bench, as long as you can get these little hook clips off of here, you can wiggle it off without a whole lot of trouble. All right, so now I'll take the replacement one. And this is, you got home, you got the salvage yard, you pop this guy in. And what you're going to see when I power it up is a whole lot of bad news. All right, so I'm going to set this guy back where he was. And I'm going to repower everything back on. And what's the first thing we see? Well, we see the mileage is not right. It's showing 210, 211 now because that's what's stored in this body control module. And remember, the instrument cluster on these models in these years is a dumb device. It's just going to ask for what I should show and receive it. It's not going to be storing it. And then we notice over here the head unit has talked to the BCM and it's detecting, hey, you don't belong here. And the BCM has locked the head unit out. So now the radio's locked and the odometer's wrong. That's just the beginning of the problems you're going to run into when you do a swap like this from a salvage yard instead of a brand new unit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clear some of this stuff off the bench. I'm going to leave this set up here, and I'm going to go get my Tech2, and I'm going to show you that Tech2 cannot fix this. By design, GM didn't want you using used body control modules in this period, and so the Tech2 won't update any of this information, but I'm going to go show you that just so you can understand it. So I'm going to get my Tech2 and we'll come back. Okay, we're back to the same setup. Haven't touched it. Still showing the 210, 211, which is the wrong mileage. Still showing a locked radio here. I've got my Tech2. I'm going to reach over back here on this harness I've got, and I'm just going to block your view for a moment while I hook the Tech2 up to the DLC connector. And I'm going to go ahead and power up the Tech2. And what I'm going to do is once it comes up, I'm going to build the vehicle. Going to diagnostics. And like I said, we assembled these bench components from a 2004 Chevrolet J-Car, which is a Cavalier. I'm going to go into body. It's going to tell me that I don't have an OnStar unit, which is normal. Wouldn't even see that on the real car. And then I'm going to come into the body control module. And I'm going to go down into special functions. New BCM setup. This is where you would go if you were replacing this with either a brand new GM body control module that you picked up, or even a remanufactured body control module where either GM or one of their vendors or even some third parties that are authorized to do this have wiped the EEPROM back to what we call a virgin image. So it looks just like it is out of the box. And if you go into that with one of those, you would go through a process where it wants to know, do you want to set up a new one? And it'll come in and tell you that, hey, I can't do it. It's locked. And that on these years and many vehicles from GM in these years, you could not change, in particular, the VIN or the odometer, but there's some other stuff that's busted in here too, which is obviously our theft system is going to be tied to the last BCM as well. So now what do we do? Well, that's the main point of this video. So we can't use a Tech2. It's useless for us here. About the only thing I could do, I want to mention this though, is after we get past those problems, we would be able to go in here and set options. So the various options that were available on the vehicle, we could configure those, and those are going to vary by the vehicle, but we're not going to continue with that because the main thing we're trying to fix is the fact that we have this VIN lock problem and this wrong mileage. So I'm going to go ahead and power the Tech2 off because it is not going to help us at all with this problem. And then I'm going to go ahead and come over here and power this guy off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this Tech2 out of the way. Get it off the bench. And then I'm going to show you what we're going to be chasing inside the body control module. So I'm going to bring back these guys. I'm just going to bring the original one back for a moment because either way it's going to be basically the same view. So there's a couple of tabs here that you can see, and you can just take a small, short, stubby flathead. You just want to push these tabs in just enough to get them to release, and then you can actually open up this plastic case, and that'll reveal the circuit board that's inside the BCM. And so what you've got on here, and the one that doesn't have the support for the keyless is very similar. It's just some of these components are not populated if we open this one up. And this board actually can come out of here. This thing opens up like a clamshell on this particular model, and this guy comes right out. And this EEPROM here, that it has a house number on it, and I'll get a flashlight out here, see if we can see it a little better if we zoom in. Maybe set it down here instead of it being on my hand. But this EEPROM is actually, despite the number that's on it, so this is a microchip manufactured device, but it's got a Delphi house number on it, not what you would expect. It actually turns out that it's a 93,000 class EEPROM. Specifically, you'd read and write this as a 93C66, and you'd have some success. You can't read or write this guy in circuit, though. It's just a type of circuit for this particular application where in-circuit reading with like one of these test clips is just not going to work out. So what I've done, I had the video on the base unit. I'll open that guy up too. What I've done in the base unit is I've gone ahead and removed this EEPROM, which should normally be sitting right there, and I've placed it inside this test clip. And I'm just going to be using one of these inexpensive little CH341A USB programmers that I've actually modified for automotive use. So I've actually modified the board so it can support 5-volt devices, and it can support an EEPROM like this 93,000. I'm going to come over here to the software for this, and I'm going to pick a 8-bit 93C66 EEPROM. This is these Delphi devices are using 8-bit memory organization for these. And I'm going to go read this guy. And what you'll find when you read this EEPROM, and you'll see all this is in the clear, it's not encrypted or anything. Here's the VIN of the vehicle this came out of. And it's the full VIN, the whole string, not just the last few digits like you sometimes see in a radio or something of that nature. And then down here, you'll see, and you see these letters here, but what you're really looking at is what you're seeing in the actual memory area. And you'll see this repeating string here, right? So we see this 3667 FF95, 3667 FF95, 3667 FF95, these three things. This is the mileage. It's got an algorithm behind it, and it's done as redundantly 3 times, and these bytes represent the mileage of the vehicle. Ideally, what you want to do in this, when you do this, this is what I would do, is I would just take the EEPROM from the original board and transfer it to the replacement board. I would make sure that the BCM is exactly the same number, came out of the exact same make, model, and year vehicle, and you should be having no problems whatsoever. But if for some reason you can't, like perhaps the EEPROM's damaged, then you got to come in here and do it manually. So it's pretty straightforward. You can see how you can come in and type in the VIN manually, but then it's not straightforward as to what you would do here. You actually have to have separate software to tell you how to plug in a value here that represents the mileage that you need to do, because normally the Tech2 would do this on a brand new BCM, but it won't do it on a used one because it's locked out. GM doesn't want you to be able to do that. So the type of software you'd have to use, I'm not going to be able to show here because you have to pay for that and you get a subscription to it and that sort of thing, and maybe you have to send this unit off. But I did the video mostly for awareness and understanding of what you could do here. If you don't really care about this odometer problem, just changing the VIN will at least get the radio lock fixed and get it matching with the PCM, and should get you past some of the more severe problems with having this stuff not match. And then you should be able to get past and relearn the key for the vehicle and be able to run with it and just live with the odometer being wrong because you swapped out this device. But if it really bothers you, I wanted to show you where this was, and you could use the same technique to write in a new value if you got access to software like TacoSoft is one example I could tell you that would let you calculate what you needed to plug in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go take the next step here. I'm going to take the original module and I'm going to remove the EEPROM from that, and I'm going to show you that, and we're going to place it on the replacement module, which is the preferred way to do this, and I'm going to show you how when you do that technique everything just works fine. So let me get set up for that and we'll come back. All right guys, I've got this same setup. I haven't touched it yet. I'm just going to power it back on to show you where we're still at. So we're still at the incorrect mileage, and we're still at the guy that's marked with an R, and we're still at the situation where the radio is locked. So what I do is I'm going to disconnect this one now. here and wheel them out. And then the middle one. All right, so I'm going to open this guy up. And extract the board out. That one's off, and now this one's off. Okay. Just want to kind of not lose our little radio antenna. All right, and I'm going to set this right here. So this was the replacement board that we pulled from the salvage yard. Now what I've already done on the original board is I've already removed, to save some time, I've already removed the EEPROM from this board and cleaned it up. And we're going to transfer the original EEPROM to the replacement one so we can restore the operation. Now, might be able to show you guys this in my scope, or I might have to just let you see it below while I do it the usual way. But, there's our guy right there that we want to extract. Focus that for you. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this product I'll show you after we get done. It's called Ship Quick. Rather than having to mess around with a hot air gun or anything like that, it actually uses a type of low melting point alloy that contaminates the original solder. Probably used a little bit more than I wanted to use there, but it's not going to hurt anything. And it contaminates the original solder and lowers the melting point so that you can extract it without having to use a hot air gun or something like that. And so I'm just going to be able to use a regular soldering iron to do this because of that product. But it's going to be a lot of fumes, so apologize, you're going to hear my exhaust fan going while we make this change. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be coming down and just melting some of this alloy onto this existing chip. And you kind of can harvest this stuff later, so I don't worry about being too generous with it or using too much, because I can reuse this for other projects. And once I feel like I've got it on all of the pins, it lifts right off. It's really a great product. I really love it. Saves a lot of time. So we're going to set this guy over here. Just to kind of show you where we set him right over here. And what I'm going to bring into view, actually I'll show you this way. I'm going to bring into view the one that we pulled off the other board, so you can see he's all cleaned off. And then I'm going to clean up this flux area. Actually, you know what? I probably will just go ahead and put him on in this position without even trying to do that. I'm just going to clean up a little bit with a copper braid. Just to get some of this material out of here. Again, I'm doing this not in the usual way I'm used to doing it. I'm normally just looking through the microscope, but now what I'm doing is I'm actually watching this on the phone, the same as you guys are. And then what you'd be able to do is you'd be able to position your chip right on the pads. You'd be able to come in with your iron and tack it down. So I'm just going to reposition this so I can do that. Now if I was doing something more permanent, I'd probably come in here and resolder it. But for this little test that we're doing, I just want to get it tacked down so we can prove that this solves our problem. All right, now assuming I didn't miss any pins and we got good contact, should be able to set our iron back over here, shut our guy off. We won't even clean this up for this test. We're just going to walk right straight over here where we left off. I'm just going to load this one in the original housing just to make it easier to hook up. And then we're going to plug it back together. We'll set this guy over here. All right, now we never check our quote unquote battery power off. So we're just going to turn the ignition back on. And I might have put the EEPROM in backwards. All right, guys, sorry about that. I had a tiny splash of solder that created a bridge near that EEPROM, and I had to open it up, and I had the EEPROM incorrectly, so that part of the video is all correct. I missed that, and I had to open it up and fix that. So you can see now what we wanted to show before we had that mistake by rushing through that previous piece. We've got the correct odometer mileage showing because we transfer the EEPROM, and again, we've got our radio working okay, and it's not locked because, and again, we're using the replacement board. So we basically took our salvage yard unit. We took its EEPROM off and replaced it with the one that was on the original that we were presuming to be dead or damaged and put it on here. Now we're back in business. So that was the main thing I wanted to show you. And again, alternatively, if it's the EEPROM itself that was bad, you could have gone in like I showed you and at least edited the VIN to get the radio unlocked and get the PCM talking to the BCM, and then you could have pursued elsewhere how to get the odometer calculation redone with extra software. I hope this kind of technical information helps you out if you're having this kind of problem and you either can't afford a new BCM or remanufactured one, or for some reason you just want to go through this kind of exercise just for your own knowledge. If you've got comments, I'll try to answer them if you leave them down below. And always check the video description. I'll try to keep any of the technical information up to date so the video doesn't go stale. If you like this, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.